whether it's in North Carolina, whether it's in Michigan, whether it's in other states where they're going to be sending out 80 million ballots. And it's Democrats. They're trying to rig this election. We're going to start by saying that the Democrats are trying to rig this election because it's the only way they're going to win. The only way they're going to win is to rig it. 52 days from now, we're going to win Nevada, and we're going to win 4 more years in the White House. And then after that, we'll negotiate, right? Because we're probably, based on the way we were treated, we're probably entitled to another 4 after that.
President Trump at another largely maskless rally in Minden, Nevada on Saturday night, telling supporters without offering any evidence that Democrats are trying to rig the upcoming election. And again, perhaps tongue-in-cheek, reviving the idea of him serving more than 2 terms in office. Some critical new polls are shedding light on the impact of the female vote in the upcoming presidential election. Joining us now is Lauren Leader, CEO and co-founder of All In Together, a nonpartisan nonprofit organization centered on the civic education of women. Her organization has teamed up with Lake Research and Emerson College Polling to conduct the most comprehensive survey of women voters to date, which definitively shows that while President Trump has tried to appeal to women voters, particularly suburban women, with his law and order messaging, his efforts appear to be not working. Is that correct, Lauren? And why?
Right, Mika. So we conducted really the most comprehensive poll of women voters across America. We also oversampled a whole bunch of the battleground states. And what we found is that, look, Trump has a historic, enormous gender gap pretty much across the board with women. But with suburban women, it's really dramatic. When it comes to the law and order question, suburban women are favoring Biden by 52%. The same thing is true when it comes to their coronavirus response. The same thing is true when it comes to how Trump has handled reopening the schools and to race relations. And so what we see is that across the board, despite the efforts that the president has made to try to use scare tactics to attract suburban women, the fact is it's not working. And we've been able to prove that definitively, really with every group of women voters except for one, which I want to talk about. Trump is behind by significant digits, and that's going to potentially spell real problems for him in November.
And what's the group where he is doing well?
Well, once again, Mika, what we see, as we saw in 2016, non-college educated white women are still with Trump. They are with him on every single one of the measures that we looked at, and they're with him by significant numbers. And what's very concerning about that is the impact that those non-college educated white women could have in the battleground states where they are overrepresented. So when you look at just the demographics and at who has been registered to vote in the last few years, we have seen significant increase in the number of non-college educated white voters registering to vote in those states. And as we saw in 16, when the margins are small, if the turnout is low, that small group, that 52% of non-college educated white women that voted for Trump in 2016 and caused so much consternation among certainly Democratic women who just could not understand how so many women, white non-college educated women, voted for him, we're seeing the same trend now. And that is definitely alarming. So I think one of the issues, it's alarming for Democrats. I think the issue is going to be that as we've seen over and over again, we see poll after poll after poll that shows huge advantages for Biden. But in the electoral college system, you can have a small group like the non-college educated white women wind up with an outsized impact on the outcome of the election in November.
Kasie Hunt is with us, and she has the next question. Kasie.
Lauren, good morning. We talked a little bit about that law and order message as we introduced you and how the Trump campaign is trying to use that to speak to these suburban women. But I'm wondering, what impact is the coronavirus and the president's handling of coronavirus having in terms of how women voters are moving? We know they moved decisively against Republicans in the 28 midterms before the pandemic broke out. How is that affecting things now?
Right. And I think we're definitely seeing that. I mean, women are extremely concerned about the president's response to corona. And one of the places where I think you see this in a really interesting way is that 25% of Republican women are saying that they're going to vote for Trump. And you're also seeing huge numbers of independent women, which is also reflected in the suburbs. You know, we have very high numbers of independent women in the suburbs across America who are saying that they are supporting Biden and who have moved pretty decisively and definitively against him. Look, the overarching issue that we've seen over and over again for women has been just safety and security. And these days, that means a lot of things. That's about more than the law and order issue. It's about the health and safety of their children. It's about the health and safety of their family in the COVID environment. And by the way, in the 2018 midterms, part of what we saw was such a motivator for those same women to come out to the polls was the safety against gun violence in schools. And so, you know, what we're seeing is this sense, and we talked about this the last time I was on, Mika, that women view their vote as essential to protecting the future of the country, to protecting their families. They take that civic responsibility very seriously and they turn out. And so anyone that underestimates the impact of women voters on this election really isn't looking at the reality. Women have turned every election in this country since 1980. They're going to do it again this time. The question is which women are in the electoral college system are going to have the upper hand.
Lauren Lader, thank you very much. Very good points.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.